Monday, April 26th. With us, we have voting members, Councilor Giovanni Rodriguez, Councilor Selena Reyes, and myself, the chair, Pavel Payano. I will start today's meeting by reading what we usually mention, the governor's order that we usually mention at the start of every committee meeting and city council meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. Just as a reminder, folks can see this on Facebook, and they can also see this on YouTube. Councilors, so we have on our agenda, we have several items that have been tabled. Is there a motion? Councilor Rodriguez, I am unable to hear you.
What item would you like to start?
So Councilor, so there are two items that I know that we're definitely going to have for discussions. We have Chief Roy, Lawrence Police Department, and we also have we have somebody from the school department as well. So we can do it in order of what's been tabled. We have 155-20 Lawrence school openings. And then, yes.
I'll make a motion to take item 155-20, school opening, Councilor Payano.
There's been a motion. Is a second?
Second.
There's a motion has been second. Let's call the vote. Councilor Rodriguez?
I'll say yes.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Levy? And the chair votes in the affirmative. So Odanis, you are here. You need to get 1 second. Let me give you the ability to share your screen, but it doesn't look like. John, are you able to give Odanis?
I can share. I have
Right.
access.
Perfect.
Let me see. Hold on, let me just get this to the beginning. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
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 All right. So good evening. Thank you, Councilor Payano, for having me here tonight to just share with you a little bit of what we have been doing at Lawrence Public Schools to prepare for school reopening and now for in-person learning. I have shared with everyone a PowerPoint presentation that Dr. Mary Toomey had presented to the LAE board as an update. I think it's helpful and it frames everything that we have been doing in terms of preparing for the new guidelines by DESE that mandated all school districts to bring kids back. But I'll start by saying that at LPS, we have been prepared or planning to bring students back since early as August of 2021. And, due to the pandemic and where we were at in terms of the COVID rates in the city, our plans kept changing so that we needed to kind of accommodate, or we needed to plan according to what was happening around us. So this is our in-person return. As you know, DESE mandated all school districts to start bringing kids back in a phase-in approach. Our phase-in approach started April 5th. And per DESE requirements, we needed to bring back elementary school children. So for us, it means pre-K through grade 5. In addition to that, we also included students with disabilities that are assigned to district programs. So all special education programs that are district run, we also included in this April 5th in-person return. I should say that to plan for this, the district sent out a survey, a binding survey to all families to gauge what was their interest for whether they were interested or to sending their kids to school for in-person learning. And when we were going to begin this in-person facing approach, or would they keep their student remote? The survey was sent out to families at the end of February through March. So it was open for a 2-3 week window period to allow families to respond to the survey. You'll see a little bit later what kind of like the breakdown is for students that are going to be returning versus the students that are staying remote. And based on the survey, just district-wide, the response rate was something like 60% of families were sending their kids home to school versus a 40% were keeping their kids at home, or a 50-50 split. So April 5th, we welcome back elementary school students. We're getting ready and prepared to welcome back on Wednesday. This Wednesday, our middle school students, so grades 6 and 8 will be joining the other grades. That means for us that, for example, at the Arlington, we have about, just to give you an example, right now we have about 475 students in person, just elementary school. With the addition of middle school, that's going to bring up the number to close to 600 or 800 students in the building. It's not all of our students, but we're happy that a lot of students are coming back. Again, and for Wednesday, we're going to integrate specialized high school programs as well. So our Enlace students, INT, HLC, and the RISE program will also have the opportunity to return on April 28th. The next wave of students that will be returning for in-person learning will be our high school students. The week of May 3rd, we are starting with grade 9 on May 3rd. Again, this is to give them an opportunity to get acquainted with the building. Our grade 9 students have never been on campus. They graduated 8th grade and they have not been on our building yet. So this will give an opportunity for freshmen to get acquainted to the building, know their teachers and the administrators. And then on May 4th, so that the Tuesday after, then we'll welcome grades 10 through 12. So at that point, the campus will be, there will be more students on the campus. Our hours, for our school hours look a little bit different than our normal school years. Our school hours at 8 a.m. To 1:30 for grades 1 through 8, and 8:30 to 2:30 for grades 9 through 12. For pre-kinder and kindergarten, we have an AM and a PM session. So you see it here at the bottom. We have the morning session 8 to 10:30, and what we call the afternoon session 12 to 2:30. This is just what we have been doing, some of the reminders to parents, that although for those students that are staying remote, the commitment is that they will continue to have a robust and engaging remote learning, even if, similar to whether their student will be sitting in the classroom with us. Here, it gives you that breakdown that I was talking about earlier. This is as a result of the survey that I talked about that the district sent out to families. As you can see, more than half of all LPS students have returned or are expected to return in person. It's a 50.4% versus a 49%. And we had a good response rate of about 10,000 families responded to the survey. So it was a really, really good response rate. Again, this is just showing the breakdown of the students that are in the classroom for the pre-K through grade 5 versus the students that are remote. So the blue is the student that is in the classroom with us, learning from the classroom, and the red is the students that are simultaneously learning from home. Similarly, this is what we're expecting for Wednesday in terms of the return of middle school students in these specialized programs, high school programs, what the in-person rate would be versus the remote students. And this just gives you a projection of current and projected students with disabilities, and also the English language learner students. Again, what's the percentage of students that are in person with us versus the percentage of students that their families or their parent chose to keep them remote for the rest of the academic year. And same to the right is the data for English language learners. I should say that although this was a binding survey for families, the district and schools are working with families. Should there be a need for a family to switch from a remote learning option to an in-person? So let's say I was at the beginning, I felt comfortable with my students staying remote. I don't know what's going on at the school. I don't know how safe. And then, 3 weeks from now, my situation changed. My student, should really be learning from the classroom. Then I have the opportunity to then work with my school, my child's school, and then change that learning preference from remote to in-person learning. And it has a lot to do with transportation for those students in these programs, special education programs. And what are we doing in terms of health and safety protocols? What is our commitment to health and safety protocols? Every staff person that comes in the building, whether it's a school building or central office, they're required to complete the attestation form before they enter any LPS building. They follow the prompts, and the questions, and then they're guided by how they're responding to those questions. Staff members report to one school each day unless authorized from a supervisor. So we're not having staff travel from one building to the other. In fact, even central office staff, we're minimizing the amount of traffic or the amount of visits to schools that we're doing during the week or during the day for that same purpose. Staff are also asked to sign in and out of each building, indicating the time that they spent in the building. So if I'm a central office staff and I'm visiting the Lawler, I sign in and I sign out. That's one way to keep the health and safety protocols. We take attendance, so schools take attendance at the start of each period, and especially during the homeroom period for the class. There's a seating chart. So one of the things that we did with facilities, the facilities team, oops, sorry, I forgot I'm sharing, so I moved my mouse. The facilities team, to prepare for this in-person return, they did a feasibility study. So they went around every school and they measured every classroom. So depending on how big the classroom was, and depending on how many desks or how many students per classroom, they were able to determine whether it was a 3 feet or a 6 feet distance. So the DESE guidelines changed about a week before we were welcoming students back to the April 5th. So they changed from a 6 foot distance of the desk to 3 feet. So that allowed some schools to have the opportunity to welcome more students than they may have been projected to welcome. Some school buildings, because it's a bigger building and the classrooms are bigger, they could still honor the 6 feet distance. So we left it up to the school at that point if they felt a little bit more comfortable to keep their 6 feet distance of the desk. But every school is following the same guideline of the 3 feet distance when the student is wearing their mask. They have to, it's a 6 foot distance when they're not wearing their mask. So during a mask break, during lunch periods, if they're eating in the classroom, then the students need to be abiding by the 6 feet distance. If they're going to the cafeteria, then in the cafeteria, you'll see all the little desks are separated by 6 feet versus a 3 feet distance. Staff members maintain their masks when they're in the presence of others at all times, even when they are more than 6 feet away. And during the lunch and during the mask breaks, staff do not gather or socialize in groups if a 6 foot distance cannot be maintained, even when they are outdoors. Another guidance that we've asked staff kind of to follow is that not to congregate in lunch break rooms or in classrooms, to avoid congregating as much as possible. If they're bringing their lunch and they need to heat it up in the lunch break, it's normal. Then, one person at a time, depending how big the lunch break space is. These are just some pictures just to show you, what staff, how staff and student are doing their learning during the in-person return. Here also shows you the desk distance. So, you see the tape on the floor, a little square. So the desk is within that. That's a 3 feet distance in that classroom. You see here the students learning with their mask on. And that's all I have. I don't know. I'm happy to answer any questions, anything in particular that I didn't cover that you're interested in knowing a little bit more about.
Yeah, Odanis, can you go back 2 slides? Yeah, that one right there. Commitment to health and safety protocols. All right, great. So I do have a couple questions. My questions originally were a little bit more geared to the health and safety aspects. I think it's important for our committee and for the community to sort of to understand what procedures are in place. If we're asking all of our kids to come back. But you've mentioned that there is some hype there. Essentially, it looks almost like a hybrid model. Like there's going to be some folks, a lot of the students are going to be doing in person, but there are some students that are doing remote. Potentially, could there be a class where let's say there's 20 kids in the class where 8 kids are remote and the rest are in person?
Potentially, yeah. Then that's happened.
So how? That sounds difficult to do. So my background, I was a teacher, but even if I didn't have that experience, it just sounds difficult to both have, if I'm organizing a meeting, I wouldn't be able to, for example, organize this meeting virtually and at the same time kind of host a meeting within the classroom. So I'm interested in understanding sort of the reason behind that, and not, the only other option I can think of is if there are 8 students in one class that are remote, like why not put those on, those students together, the remote students together?
So the teachers have really been great at working with us and working, to ensure that every student is learning. There is a teacher and potentially a paraprofessional with them or a BBE in the classroom with them. So while the teacher is focused on the students that are in person, the para may be focused, a little bit more focused on one-on-one with the students that are remote. So that's how the classroom and the teachers are managing that. The hybrid, they have the tools and texts that they need to ensure that they can make this happen. They have the webcams, the Mimios, the projectors, you know, their laptops, their desktops, they have what they need in order to make sure that, you know, and they're, you know, and I've been to some school visits where you see it live. So I think it's hard to explain it, and it's probably hard for you to visualize it without maybe seeing it.
So having taught virtually, I can visualize it, and I'll be honest, I can't see myself doing it, right? Like even if you have a paraprofessional helping out, that means the teacher's not there. Like when you're virtual, you know, it's so first, let me say thank you to you, the folks at LPS, all the teachers and all the parents at home that have become teachers, that for the past year have been giving their all. You know, we know it's not the same as a kid being in school, but I think, you know, everyone is doing the best that they can to ensure that the kids are learning. And I know that the kids, you know, the kids want to go back to school. The parents want, you know, folks to go back to school. And, you know, we have this issue with this virus that's sort of preventing that. And, you know, there is an aspect of ensuring, you know, balancing learning with the safety of our students and the safety of our community. I think just, and I won't dig much more on this, just to move on to some other questions and to allow my colleagues to ask questions as well. I find that it would be very difficult for a teacher to be able to provide the type of learning that they're providing now virtually, and at the same time have to manage a classroom, even with a paraprofessional in the room. It would mean that the teacher has to choose between doing remote learning and doing and being present. It sounds like, you know, and I'm hoping that there might be an opportunity to, you know, for LPS to, you know, so relook at this policy, because I think that there might be other options available. Even so, one of the things that we did in my former school, right, during the, you know, almost the heat of this, is we actually had a group of students that were virtual, and we had a group of students that were in person. But we just divided that between teachers. So there was a teacher that was just focused on doing the virtual learning, and there was a teacher that was focused on being in person. The reason I say this is that I think all these efforts being made for those that can, right? And I think there's going to be a lot of parents that don't think that it's safe to send their kid back to school, and might take the approach of having their kid be remote, that they will actually lose out on that learning. So because of, you know, certain fears that they might have, they'll have less of an education than what they were having before. And I don't think that we want to go back. And I say that because I think that there's a lot of parents out there, just like there's a lot of parents that are, you know, that they're going to send their kids back. But because I think it's because they have a certain trust with LPS and with the city of Lawrence, where we're essentially saying, yes, it's safe to send your kid back to school. And that's why they're sending them back. They're not necessarily like, you know, putting, you know, learning too much about, you know, these policies and procedures. And one of the reasons why we're asking you to come in is because a lot of parents have been asking these type of questions. And I think it'd be important for LPS to really think about that, because I know, you know, like myself, if I had children, I'd be hard pressed sending them when the distance is 3 feet. So I probably would want to do in-person learning, but if it's not going to be the teacher, it's going to be a paraprofessional, then right there and there, I feel like I'm not getting the education that my kid deserves. So I'll stop there. I understand sort of the policy that's in place, and I hope that you guys can take a second look at it. Yep.
Right, but just to clarify maybe my statement. In my statement, I didn't mean to say that a paraprofessional is teaching our students. I said a paraprofessional in the sense of a support staff with the teacher in the room to help manage the, you know, the students that are remote, if they're raising their hand, you know, and the teacher's focus on the student that's in the classroom, the paraprofessional can direct. But that was no indication that it's a para or any other than a teacher that's teaching our students.
So I understand, and I don't want to give the thought that I think, paraprofessionals are any less than teachers. I've met a lot of paraprofessionals that are better than, some teachers that I've met. So I think that having a paraprofessional in the room that understands the sort of like education style and education theory and can support a teacher is extremely important and vital, and sort of helps things along. But I also see that like you could only put your attention on one thing, and it's difficult enough controlling a classroom, trying to make sure that everybody's following the right policies and keeping distance, having their masks, doing all that stuff, and at the same time trying to make sure that all the kids are paying attention within a virtual setting. It sounds complicated, but I'll stop there. And just moving on with the, and I understand that DESE has a different policy in place when it comes to the schools. So in the city, we talk about 6 feet distance. Our school, we talk about 3 feet distance. I'm having a really hard time coinciding both of those. But the place where I find that I find most troubling is, reading this PowerPoint. I did read that that they're going to keep a 6 feet distance during extended mask breaks. So there's going to be a period, and I get it's like their lunch, but essentially, when you say 6 feet distance, do you mean there's going to be 6 feet between each student during their lunchtime, and they'll be unmasked by that at that time?
Correct. To allow them to eat their lunch.
Right.
Without a mask.
And yeah, I know. I mean, I understand, but still 6 feet, right? And it's one of these things where it's hard, I guess, finding the space. Not trying to say that kids should eat with masks on, because you can't do that. But still, what we say is you have to be 6 feet away with masks. What I'm reading here is students are going to be 6 feet away while they're eating without masks. Interested in sort of understanding the thought frame behind that, and sort of like the logic that went to it, and also where a student's going to be eating and you might have mentioned this throughout your presentation, in the classroom, is it outside, is it the lunchroom, like where is this taking place?
Right, good question. So the district is not necessarily mandating or dictating where. The district is working with each school and their school autonomy, and each principal knows their building better. The 6 feet distance while eating, it's fair to understand that, we're not, the students are not together facing each other, having their lunch and chatting. They're sitting down as if they were on their desks. They're sitting down, they're all facing, whether it's facing forward, they're not facing each other or facing side, where they're facing forward, they're eating their lunch. They finish, they put their mask, and once everybody's done, they either return back to their classroom if they're eating in the cafeteria, because like a school like the Partham, a school like the Gilmet, a school like the Arlington may have the space in, the space in the cafeteria to accommodate the students, or they're simply staying in their classroom because it's also big enough. Perhaps that classroom doesn't have a lot of in-person kids, so they were able to keep the 6 feet distance with the desks versus the 3 feet distance, or students are simply going outside because it's a nice day and they're going to go outside and eat their lunch.
Okay. Are there any sort of are we doing testing with the students? Are we doing I understand sort of, so what we're doing with staff, that seems to sort of fall in line a lot with sort of the policies that the city has set up with their employees, or at least from my understanding, and it falls in line with sort of a lot of other companies, what they're doing, a lot of other organizations. I see. One moment, Councilor Rodriguez. interested in knowing if we're doing any type of, I don't know, like testing, like how are we, what are we doing, to try to capture sort of like this knowledge of if a student is sick or, has a high temperature. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because I think you spoke very well as far as like what we're doing with staff. I'm interested in sort of like what we're doing with students as a whole.
Sure. So the building nurse, it's working very close with the school administration and the teachers. We're not doing temperature checks. If that's what you're asking. We were finding that, for example, when we attempted this, when we brought in some of the high needs students, because the students were transported in a bus when they were exiting the bus, and they were doing the temperature check because they have their coats, it's warm, their temperature was actually like 100 plus, and it was no indication of them being sick. It was just that they were just hot because they have so many things on. So, the school nurse is really working close with the teachers and the administration. If a student comes in and doesn't feel well, or, shares or starts displaying any cold-like symptoms, then the nurse takes over. We have what is called a recess room in every school. That's where the student would go. The nurse will then check on the student, whether it's then at that point, take their temperature, and do the pool testing or do what they need to do. And then based on what happens next, then the nurse will connect with the family, and then, the student then would get picked up by the family and go through the protocols of getting tested.
Has there been any thoughts on doing, even if it's like once every 2 weeks, like just like testing, like free testing being provided at the school?
I cannot answer that. I'm happy to bring that back to the superintendent as a question.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, so I'm gonna just stop I have a couple more, but I'll stop and see if any other counselors wanted to ask a question. Counselor Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions, and my questions will be regarding to the student learning and also the schedule. So based on the schedule that you present, can you go back to the slides of that where you present the schedule? So essentially, the kids that are going in person today, they're getting out at 1:30, 1:15, right? Let me see.
1:30.
1:30. So the difference between this year at home or in-person learning will be about 2 hours, right? Every day.
Correct, give or take. Yep.
Yeah, and adding up those 2 hours of learning and put it in perspective of what that means in terms of the whole year learning, what is the percentage in terms of time that our students are missing if they're missing 2 hours every day?
I don't have that data, but I'm happy to send that as a follow-up.
All right. Essentially, about, I'll say based on a quick math, it's about 20 or 25% of the time that they're supposed to be in the school they're missing. And I understand that, breaks and other time periods are more often to be taken during the pandemic because of the situation. So I would like to know, put in perspective in terms of time, how much our students are missing. And also I would like to know if there is any plan to go back to the regular schedule during this year.
So I should know that our schedule for this year was based on DESE recommendation. for what a school year, under this circumstance may look like. So it wasn't our choice it wasn't Lawrence Public Schools that decided and say, hey, let's just do 5.5 hours a day for students because that's what we feel comfortable with. We were given early on the reopening guidelines by DESE, and we were following, we were actually a little bit high in terms of, right on the border in terms of what DESE was recommending for what are remote learning for students. Keeping in mind that this schedule was originally for remote learning, 5.5 hours. It's hard to keep a student on the computer for 5.5 hours of time a day. So, now that the students are back in person, the rationale to continue with the same schedule for the next 2 months or so that we have left our school is because not every student is back in the classroom. We still need to account for the students that are still at home learning. So it's hard for a student to sit at home for 8 hours or 7 hours a day of learning. So that's kind of like the rationale why we, following DESE's guidelines and the rationale for keeping the schedule the same through the end of this year. And then once next year comes and, I think we're all ready and praying that next year is a normal, whatever normal will be, but more of a normal year, then we can return to our normal school year or school hours of 2:45 or 3:15, depending on the school.
Well, the reason that I'm asking that question is because there is many schools around Lawrence and in Lawrence, within Lawrence, that are going back to in-person learning as a regular schedule in terms of time. And there is other schools, perhaps, I don't want to mention any names, that they went back to 7:50 to 5:30, and then going back to 6:30 to 8:30 with that strict schedule during the pandemic. So in terms of changing the schedule, I'll say probably some good guidance, some good research behind it. But I'm interested to know how much learning our students are missing. Not just in terms of time, because we're not going to be able to, we're probably going to be able to determine how much we're missing in terms of time. So it's 10 hours a week. But in terms of learning, what that 10 hours a week means, which we're probably going to be able to catch that once we take an assessment and be able to develop that data. Because it is going to be extremely important to know that in case that we're going to have to recommend parents to do something else in terms of catch up, of a catch up on a society that we already behind. Looking at farther away, our students' standards are not the same as other students' standards, and that's unfortunate. And to be able to compete, and I know now we shouldn't be thinking about that right now, but we should be thinking about learning because of the fact that our students are going to school. And not talking about that, I think that it will be also very disappointed or responsible if we don't have those conversations now. And I believe that we should. In terms of our kids' education, it should be the must. It should be #1 priority. And once we have that accomplished, we're probably going to have a better society within the city, and people, responsible citizens, which we have. But our students are the future of the city, and we should focus on at least learning how much we lost during the pandemic, and be able to catch up and be able to develop those plans to catch up and be responsible with our own students, our own kids, our own children. Because, like I said, there is other school districts around the city of Lawrence that the schedule wasn't modified. and they're going back to school. Obviously, numbers matters. Perhaps our numbers in terms of the coronavirus, positive testing and infestation rates were higher, and we get that. But I think that we should at least know, based on the assessment, how much. I know MCAS was is not a requirement this year, but I know that we're going to have to take MCAS to be able to develop curriculum and be able to learn how much effort we're going to have to put into the curriculum to be able to catch up. And I think that we take full advantage of that because it is important. So I'll yield the floor for now, and then I come back with more questions.
Councilors, anybody else would like to have some questions? Councilor Levy?
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. I have a question regarding when does the school end this year?
The last day of school this year is June 15.
June 15. Okay. Well, at the beginning, I was a little concerned about the reopening of the school and for the student to be present over there. And this thing, like 2 weeks ago, my granddaughter, she started school and she decided to go present to school. The same day she came with a note that said that she has to stay home because she was near to somebody else. She was exposed to someone or some student that was with the COVID. So she has to stay home. She has to have the test 3 days or 4 days after, and for then a week after to come back to school. That's part of my little concern. So what is the protocol that we are having right now? Sorry. Here, are we going to be testing the children every week, or are we going to do something, or the teachers?
So we're following, we're not testing weekly or testing students, you know, for the sake of testing. Like I explained a little earlier, we're working very close with the director of nursing and the nurse in the building of every school for the student, you know, to troubleshoot or to work with the students that are displaying any cold-like symptoms, and, you know, and then follow the protocol. In the case of your granddaughter, it sounds like she was asked to stay home because she was identified as a close contact. And just for the safety of everyone, you know, then, you know, she's asked to quarantine, just like others would have in that classroom if it was a classroom setting. I mean, you know, my weekly reports, you know, at the mayor's meeting around, you know, how we're doing in terms of positive cases in our buildings. It's happening, you know, there's staff, there's kids, kids are attending daycare, you know, childcare providers after they're, you know, we're out, we have to go to the supermarket, you know, we still have to do different things. And then we're coming, you know, we're coming to school. So we're following the same protocols. As soon as we learn that a student may have been exposed, so that the student had tested positive because at the home, a parent or a guardian tested positive, we're doing our due diligence by just, making sure that everyone is informed and that our families are informed if their student is identified as a close contact. I mean, we are fogging, in terms of safety and health and safety protocols that we're following in the schools. We are, deep cleaning and fogging twice a week or more if it's necessary, every classroom, every hallway, the entire school. across the district is getting deep cleaned and fogged twice a week. Custodians are, continue to work in their buildings to clean high touch, high traffic areas. There's cleaning supplies in each classroom for either teaching staff or support staff or our own custodians to come in and wipe and clean the desks as necessary. We are following, if you visit one of our schools, you'll see little arrows. There's one-way traffic coming in. Students are lined up in a single file, 6 feet distance with their masks. They're walking in their building. They're following the arrows to walk up to their classroom. There's, one way up and then a different way down. So the students are not facing each other or near each other if they need to go up and down stairs. I mean, that's what the district is doing in terms of health and safety protocols to keep our students and staff safe.
So we had like the glass division on the classroom.
Some buildings, some classrooms do have plexiglass on the desks. Others don't. Again, the students are not facing each other in the classroom. Their students are walking into their classroom. Their desks have their names on them. Every day they sit at their desk. They're not turning. There's not a lot of turning to their classmate for learning or for any exchange. They're pretty much just sitting, looking ahead, looking at their teacher in front of the classroom with their mask on.
That is another question. So how are we doing it right now, like with the clothing, the coat, and all of these things within the student?
I'm sorry, Counselor, can you repeat the
question?
question?
How are we dealing like the coats, bufanda and everything, all of the clothing, the children clothing. So how are we dealing with this? Because there were some school before that you can see it, that they can put a 1, 2 over the other one and all those pilot and everything. How are we dealing with this right now?
They put it behind their chair. So if I'm sitting at my desk, I can put my coat or my jacket behind my chair. If I have a book bag, if I'm a student with a book bag, the teacher may ask me to put my belongings inside my backpack. They're not doing school as normal, where, like you stated, they have their cubbies maybe and they're mixing things. That's not happening.
So you said that the last day of school is
June 15th. June 15th. Mm-hmm.
So practically 1 month, 1 month and a half.
Give or take it. Yeah, we didn't have any snow days, so that's why we're ending a little early. Our snow days turn into remote learning days.
Okay, so and they are only going to be there for 5 hours.
5 hours and a half for grades 1 through 8, and 6 hours or a little more for the high school.
The high school. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think, are there any other questions from counselors? 1 second, Counselor Rodriguez. Just want to make sure Counselor Reyes, no questions?
I don't have any question because she answered before I asked.
All right. Thank you, Counselor Reyes. Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes, a couple of questions I have. Just to go back to Counselor Levy, she was asking about, the last day of school. I wanted to ask you about the future. You guys are planning or already have a date for coming back to school in September or whenever it is? And the reason that I'm asking is because there is a lot of students, a lot of parents, they haven't taken vacations for a year or so, and most likely, and if we don't think that way, that means that we're not thinking reality. most likely they're going to be visiting families. And the fact that, you know, they don't know, I think that we should make sure that they know, and that way they can plan better. When is the first day of school next year?
Yes, that's a really good question. Our calendar for next year hasn't been shared. It's going to be shared. We needed to wait for the LAE board to vote on our calendar for school year 22-23. So that has been voted on. And right now we have the first day of school as for, September 1st.
September 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not 100%, but at least parents have an idea that at the beginning of September, it's going to be the first day of school.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a take. Also, my next question will be in regard to enforcement. How you guys are dealing with enforcement? I know enforcement is kind of like not the proper word for social distancing, because I mean enforcement is like, you know, the police department is there, Roy Basket. No, I mean, how are we dealing with that, with social distancing and making sure kids are complying with the rules?
Sure, I was gonna say enforcement, Chief Bass, we need more SROs, then we're gonna enforce. In terms of, making sure that we're working, we're working with our students to follow the health and safety protocols that have been in place. I mean, I have to say, in my visits to school buildings, and the superintendent has mentioned this as well, kids have been great. Staff have been great. Students come in, they understand, right? They've been wearing masks for a little while now, for over a year, so they understand. They're coming in with their masks. They're walking into their classrooms and they're keeping their masks on. That's why the mask breaks. And it's every school is doing it a little bit different. So I can't speak, in terms of what each school is doing, but that's why the mask breaks are very important, to give the student a little break. But if a lot of us are guilty of this. We have our mask and we think because we have it under our nose, we have our mask. So it's important, there's of course reminders, especially the little ones, to bring, your mask over. But students have been great. Again, like I said, and staff have been great. I mean, it's just reminders of, hey, Odanis, can you make sure you put your mask on right, or just bring your mask up, and that's it.
Also, thank you for the response. Also, would like to know, like, do you guys have limits in terms of how many masks you guys provide to the students?
So I wouldn't say that we have limits. I mean, students come in with their masks, and we have masks available if we need to replace a mask. So the school is not providing a mask to every student, because the student also needs to wear their mask when they take the bus. Students and staff come in with our masks, and we have masks available should they become soiled or ripped or lost in the process. So we have that available to give students or staff.
And those masks are for different sizes of kids? I mean, different sizes of students, perhaps kids, masks for kids, or you provide the regular one that are for adults and they need to tweak it and do a bunch of stuff to it?
No, as you know, the mask needs to be fitted to your face. It has to be like really tight. So, my face and that of a 5-year-old, it's not the same. So, we have this, every school has the appropriate size mask for, or available. It's availability according to the students and the grades, and, children's mask versus adult mask.
So, all right. I probably
You may have a question. You may have a question, Counselor.
Yes, you have a question. She have a thermostat on her hand. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna go to the social media to see if they have any questions, something I might ask.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez. So I just have a couple other questions. Odanis, is this in memo format by any chance? So like the policies that are in place for this upcoming, when folks come in?
So the superintendent sends, there's a superintendent letter that goes to every family, or that has gone out to every family every step of the way. So to the families of students that were returning for April 5th, a letter went out. Schools did info sessions. So families, parents of students that were scheduled to come in person were invited to an info session that each school did. Some schools had multiple sessions, morning, afternoon, evening, to allow for families to attend based on their schedule. During those info sessions, there was a PowerPoint that each school shared with families that talked about health and safety protocols, a lot more images, prettier than what I just shared, because it had a lot of the images around what I talked about, the one-way stairwells, what their class may look like, with the desks set up. So that has been available for all families throughout this process. There's also a Q&A and FAQ&A on our LPS website. So if there are any families, I'll use this opportunity to say, if there are any families that either have students in school right now, or that are thinking whether they may want to change the learning preference for their students, and it may still have some questions, any questions that maybe was not asked here tonight, that they may be wondering about, go to the lawrencepublicschools.org website. The front page, the home page of our website has the FAQs available in English and Spanish. The letters from the superintendent, it's also available there for families to be able to read. Perhaps, they may have that question and they just don't know where to go, how to ask.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be excellent. I'll make sure to share that link as well on social media. Do you have any idea if like our Board of Health has looked at these policies at all and given LPS any thoughts on them?
I can tell you that our Director of Nursing works very close with our, the City of Lawrence Board of Health and DPH. So I would say that they have.
Okay, so we think that they have. Okay. I'm
90% sure that they have.
Counselors, if possible, I would love to send correspondence to Dr. Gorn, Stephen Hill from the Board of Health, and also Director Armano to get their thoughts, not necessarily to attend a meeting, but to get their thoughts on the current LPS policies. In particular, I would love to hear the points where I see that there's a difference between the city policy and sort of the policy with LPS, and that is around distance, the screening, and it sounds like there is some testing, but it's not mandatory testing. So there screening, like no mandatory testing, volunteer testing, that's a good word for it, and social distancing. Can someone make a motion for that?
I will make a motion to send correspondence to the Board of Health and Director Armano as well, with the specific word that the chair of the committee just stated.
Is there a second? Motion's been second. I'll call for a vote. Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative as well. Councilors, are there any other questions that you might have? Okay, well, that being said, Odanis, thank you so much for being with us today. I think we are a whole lot more informed than we were an hour ago, and I appreciate your time. Actually, just one last thing, councilors, I think it's also would be important for us to be aware and when there are COVID situations. Councilor Rodriguez, I don't know exactly how to frame the motion, but essentially having us getting some type of report, maybe even if it's like once a month or something like that, where we can hear about if there's been any positive case. I mean, they're only going to be there for a month and a half, but they're coming back in September as well. And I'm sure that no matter what's happening with COVID, I doubt that in 3 months, this is just going to go away. So essentially, once a month for us to get a report of, if there's been any cases of COVID, like just us knowing like school maybe or grade or, something to that effect.
I would like to make a motion to ask the school department to send in a specific report in terms of COVID testing and COVID positive result to the full council.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Reyes. Call for a
Levy.
vote. Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
and the chair votes in affirmative. Thank you, Odanis, for being here. Have a good evening. And we'll
Of
be in
course,
touch
thank
soon.
you, councilors.
Thank you.
Thank-
Councilors, what would you like to do with this motion?
I would like to-
Excuse me, Chair Payano,
Go ahead, Maria.
are you tabling that matter?
Just asking the councilors right now what they would
Oh,
like to do.
okay.
with the motion.
Yeah, I
We
would
can
like to-
table. Yeah. Motion to
There-
table.
There's been a motion to table by Councilor Levy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilor Rodriguez. Calling for a vote. Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Oh, yes.
and the chair votes in affirmative. So
Thank
the
you.
motion has been tabled. Councilors, there are other items on tabled matters. Is there a motion?
Motion to, well, we have the police department here and we have a couple of items that we need to discuss.
Mhm.
Uh,
So-
On the agenda, we have,
Council, do you need a number of one of the tabled items?
yes, as you prefer, which one do you like to speak first?
So the one that is front and center right now, which was just recommitted, item 148-18, Lawrence Auxiliary Police.
Yes, that item, I would like to take it out of the table matters.
Is there a second?
Second.
So item's been second, Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
But yes,
and the chair votes in affirmative. We are now at item 148-18, Councilor Rodriguez.
yes, please, through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to discuss a couple of things, ask questions about this item, which is basically the auxiliary police of the city of Lawrence. I know that we've been discussing this for a couple of years now, and in budget season is down the street. The budget for the auxiliary police is 16,000, and I hope that Chief Roy consider increasing that, since we all know how hard the auxiliary police have worked for the benefit of the community. It's been there for us throughout the pandemic, helping out and keeping up with the situation. Many of them working for free. The one that are not special have no payments. I have also noticed that some of those officers that were part of the auxiliary police. Now they become an officer, a regular officer of the city, which is a good thing. We're making progress as of how that program has been serving our city. I know that it's at your discretion to increase the budget. I'm not going to discuss that at this level if you don't want to. But I would really appreciate the fact that, we look into that budget of only 16,000 if you haven't increased yet for the last 5 years since I've been in the city council. It's been like that. And I think it's important for us to have at least those comments, remarks about the importance of the auxiliary police.
So I'd be more than happy to speak on that at this time. So as as you state, first of all, hello, on councils. It's good to see all of you again. It seems like it's been quite a while, but hopefully at some point we'll get back in person. But certainly, as you stated, I am certainly a big advocate and a big fan, if you will, of the auxiliary police. I can't say enough about the work that they do for us. Every time there's a fire or a COVID or you name it, we've been through a lot in the last, at least in my tenure, going into my 4th year. It seems like there's always something, right? They've always been there, very cooperative with us to help us out and free up officers to do other assignments, sometimes working long hours, as you said, Counselor, sometimes even for free if they're not special. So getting back to your point about the budget, over the last, at least since I've been here, I've tried each budget season to try to increase their budget, working with Chief DeHater on what their needs are. And it just has not gotten past the mayor's approval. I have again, in essence, doubled a request for their budget for this year. And I can go over that with you in detail if you like. Really, they've been allocated $5,000 for supplies. I'm trying to double that to 11. Going up $5,000 increase to $11,000, and then $11,000 increase for uniforms. Essentially going up to $15,000. So, in essence, we're trying to do more for them other than paying for their phones, cable, and internet subscriptions at their substation. We do provide them with some vehicles, and we pay for their fuel. But we do certainly understand that there are supply issues and uniform issues. Certainly, I would not want to see them having to pay for anything out of their own. So, in trying to work with Chief DeHater on that, again, I'm putting a request in. I have already put that request in with the mayor to essentially double their budget. So hopefully the mayor sees fit to do that, and I'm hopeful that he will.
Well, I'm glad that you have worked hard to make sure that their budget is being taken care of. And we, as a citizen of the city of Lawrence, know that we have an auxiliary police, that the budget have been increased, and they probably going to have new uniforms, new supplies, and many other important things that it make them feel special, even though they're just volunteers. But I'm glad that you have worked hard to do that, and to accomplish that will be a great deal. At least on my end, I truly believe that that force, it's been there in a volunteer basis, and it will pay off if we do that.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez. Councilors, are there any other questions on this item? So Councilor Chief Vast, thank you so much for being here to speak on this. And the other item that we're going to take out of table matters. I know that we spoke about this issue a bit ago. I'll just say that as a former auxiliary officer, I think that the department has been positively transformed in the last 3 years, and I think that there's more. Folks are getting a whole lot more from the experience that they were in the past. I would urge you to continue thinking aspirationally about the department and ensuring that I'm sure there might be a lot of guys and women that are in the department and might not necessarily want to be police officers, to make sure that even if that's the case, that they're still getting the training and that they are being valued. Because I think that is extremely important. Sometimes I think that, you know, I'm sure that it probably still occurs, but, you know, that there's this thought sometimes that the way police departments treat their auxiliary, especially when the auxiliaries are not being paid, is almost like they're like essentially like fake cops or, you know, security, you know, like sort of like this like detrimental language that I don't think is positive to ensure that we keep having these needed volunteers. And I think at the moment, the auxiliary department has not just does a great job, but the presence in the community is viewed positively, and the community does not see them as a different agency. They see it as Lawrence Police Department officers. So they're not necessarily being like, oh, that's an auxiliary and that's not. They see someone in uniform, they see someone in a cruiser, and they think like, okay, the Lawrence Police Department is, you know, like they're doing things, right? So like that you have somebody walking one of our elderly residents from church. They're not thinking that it's not the police department. They really think that it's LPD. And I think it's a valuable service to the community and the type of work that they do. Having, you know, I remember there was once where, you know, we got a call, I was there from 11 to like 4 in the morning in the rain because there was some type of crime scene, you know, and that type of work is needed because it freed up another officer to do other things, right? So I commend you for the work that you're doing, and hopefully you continue doing it and you keep growing this department, you know, and hopefully ensuring that students are getting, that officers are feeling valued and they're getting professional growth from this experience.
Absolutely. No, you make some great points for sure. And I know for me, you know, I can't say enough good things about them. So certainly we view them, you know, highly in our department. And I know that our officers are very grateful for when they're able to go back to different assignments and have these auxiliary officers, you know, certainly take their place, if you will, at a scene. And, you know, it's incumbent upon us to make them professional. As to your point, they reflect well on us and on the community as a whole. So certainly it's something we're going to continue with them.
Thank you. Counselors, what would you like to do with this item?
I would like to, if it is not any other information, any other questions, I would like to take.
I would like to just to say something.
Go ahead, Councilor Levy.
Just to thank you, the chief, you know, for everything that his department has been doing and for what he's doing also. I have had, you know, a couple of accomplishments, let me say, from the community. So principle regarding trainings that the police is giving to the community right now. And also they have been asking when are you going to start giving again some of those training and showing, you know, people create a better relation regarding the police and the community. They feel like those training that's you were giving or the police, Lawrence Police Department is being giving, having created a good relationship, you know, with the community and principle with some of the youth that are around on the street. So I want to say thank you, and I wish that maybe we can continue working on the same way or better way that, you know, that we've been doing right now. But the comments that I'm being hearing from the LPS right now is like a very good comments regarding the relation and communication with the police.
Thank you. Certainly, it's a priority for us to work, you know, with the community, and COVID has certainly thrown us off that a little bit. And we certainly have plans to do the Citizens Police Academy and Junior Police Academy, which is something that I know a couple of the counselors have asked me about, working in the summertime with the youth. So we're looking forward to doing that, and hopefully COVID continues to get better and better, and we're able to do more and more with the community for sure. Thank you.
So counselors, Councilor Rodriguez had a motion to table this item. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been a second by Councilor Levy. Councilor Levy, how do you vote on this item?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Counselor, the other item that I believe we wanted to take out was item 133-17, Lawrence Police Department, Lawrence Trust Act report. Is there a motion to take this item out of tabled matters?
No.
Second.
Motion has been made and has been seconded by Counselor Levy. Counselor Levy?
Yes.
Vote. Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Reyes?
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. We are now on item 133-17. Counselor Rodriguez.
Yes, I would like to, well, the first thing I would like to, not to ask, I would like the Chief Bass, I would like the Chief Bass to explain what is it? What is the Trust Act from his perspective? And and then we can start a discussion from there.
But so certainly, the Trust Act for me or for us is about our interactions with Homeland Security or ICE. They're kind of the same, under the same purview, immigration. So I can tell you that it's obviously been a priority policy and procedure for us training, that we do not initiate contact with our citizens regarding their immigration status. So in other words, we don't stop people, ask them what their immigration status is. We don't ask them for, passports and things like that. Where are you from? And all those kinds of things. Really, our only interaction with someone's immigration status comes from when someone is arrested by the police department and their fingerprints are taken, which is protocol for anyone arrested in the police department. And that may trigger some sort of response regarding someone's immigration status. However, that does not make us do anything different than anyone else. Our policies here in the department are treated as such in one of two ways when someone is arrested. Either that person is released by a bail bondsman based on their protocols for bailing an individual based on the charges, or that individual is brought over to court by us, and then the court determines how they're going to release those individuals. So for us, it's about our charges and our charges alone. And we've been pretty fortunate in that our officers have been following that. And we do send out periodic information and updates, and certainly reminders to our officers. As a matter of fact, I sent out another one to remind everyone to touch base. We've had a number of younger officers in the department. So we want to remind them that these are the policies and procedures that we follow, and these are the steps that we take. So we take that very seriously. And I'm happy to say, in going back and reviewing the reports, that we really couldn't find any incidents of our officers contacting ICE or anybody regarding an immigration status of an individual. So.
All right, and the next question will be, I'm pretty sure our officers are not probably contacting the ICE and stuff like that, but is ICE contacting us, and how we react when they contact us?
So I would think it's
hold up an individual because of an immigration status.
Sure. So certainly the fingerprints may elicit a response from the immigration service regarding someone's status, or there may be some sort of warrant or something, information. But if they send us something, we simply put it in the file, and that's subject to go over to the court and to the bail clerk. We don't answer any questions. We don't return phone calls and things of that nature. So we don't go in a back and forth dialogue with them. And I think honestly, it sounds like they know the protocol now for us. And no, we're not the only department, but they don't seem to initiate that contact with us anymore. I think they understand the dynamic here, and they understand what our policies are, and they just follow their own policies, and our back and forth is very limited.
Okay. So no reporting on this matter for the last
So what I did was I went back and looked again in 2019 and 2020, or I had my staff do it. And basically there was 4 instances, and I think we emailed you a copy of this. But basically it's probably the most situations I could find where something involved someone with someone with a immigration status. And as you can see from here, in each instance, all we did was transport the individual to court and that person was brought over to court by us on state charges. I can't tell you what immigration or anybody else is doing once that individual is over at court, or what the judge might be doing. But from our perspective, we're just simply dealing with people on our own charges. And like I said, everybody is treated the same in terms of an arrest and processing. So these are sort of benign, if you will, interactions that really pretty much all I could come up with, but they're very, like I said, very minor things. But we were looking for anything that might be associated with this topic matter.
All right, a quick question that probably a lot of people keep on asking and don't know the difference. And from your perspective, what is the difference between a sanctuary city and a city that adopt an ordinance or a trust act?
Sure. Well, it just seems like to me they're kind of the same. I think they're along the same guidelines. I just think the city council maybe just made it a little bit more strict, or maybe a little bit clearer in asking us not to interact with ICE. That's kind of or with immigration. That's kind of my perspective on that. I think that really the ordinance is more about making sure that the department knows that this topic matter is one that's very serious in the community, and one that's taken seriously by the council. Sort of a reminder, if you will. Sanctuary city is certainly a situation or status that is taken up by the federal government, or looked at by the federal government in terms of grants and things like that. But for us, I think the Trust Act sort of just kind of drives home the point that immigration is taken seriously here, and that for us, it's not about someone's status versus our own interactions with them.
So essentially, a sanctuary city, in some cities, they have a place that immigrants can go and stay, and we don't deal with that. The difference in the city of Lawrence is that we don't have that sanctuary. We don't have that place for immigrants that they can just go and stay in there for a limited amount of time when a situation is happening to them. Correct?
Something like that, yeah. I think Sanctuary City is more about designating yourself as a place where one's immigration status is not going to be one that's entertained by their local law enforcement. It's not going to be one that is something that they're going to participate in any sort of interactions with immigration and rounding up people and things like that we've seen across the country. We certainly cannot stop them from coming here. They have authority, both state and federal authority, but we certainly, don't participate in those types of things. For us, it's about treating everyone the same in terms of the crime that may or may not, may be committed here, and those state offenses, not something that's of a federal nature, and certainly not something as benign, in my opinion, as immigration. I think that's looked upon differently here. I think many of us are, immigrants ourselves, or I know for me, my parents were immigrants to this country, and certainly I think that a number of people are looking to move beyond that and become citizens, and we're not trying to get caught up in that whole conversation regarding immigration. If someone here has an immigration issue, then hopefully that will lead to some sort of citizenship. And I think for us, that's certainly our attitude. And if someone commits a crime, it's looked at the crime itself and not their status. Really, we're worried about the crime and getting violent people off the street.
Just a point of information. Just a quick point of information, Councilor Rodriguez. Just want to make sure that we're clear. The term sanctuary city, all sorts of people use different labels to it. In the background of it, the bulk of the term comes from this idea that that city is not going to be doing the work of the federal government. And from my understanding of the Trust Act, one of the things that it ensures is that we're not going to be using city money, city time to do the work of ICE. So as Chief Bask, Chief, I almost made you into a city councilor. As Chief Bask just mentioned, if ICE were to call the Lawrence Police Department and say, hey, we have a warrant for Mickey Mouse for violating, some type of ICE rule, ICE would have to come in and do that, not LPD. Whereas, so that's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief.
Yeah, I think for us, it's exactly that. We're not interested, or municipalities that designate themselves as sanctuary cities are not for the sole purpose of someone's immigration status or looking at that, where there may be other ones that, are out looking for that sort of thing. They sort of see it the same way as any other violation of law. And also they would participate with local, for lack of a better word, roundups. And those that, designate themselves as sanctuary cities would not be inclined to do that, anything immigration related.
And it is,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Chair. And it is important to clarify for people to understand that the city of Lawrence is not holding up on criminals. So there is been cases that there has been either violence cases or a drug dealing issue that right away the city has do the right thing in terms of putting those bad guys out of the street.
That's a great point on your part to bring that up. So we're certainly not turning our back to someone who is a wanted violent person or and also has an immigration status. So just because they have an immigration issue, if they are also a violent wanted individual, we are certainly going to arrest that individual. So that's a great point to bring up, that we're certainly, again, I think we look at it from the perspective of they're wanted for a violent sort of situation, wanted for a crime, and we don't consider someone's immigration status to be a crime.
Yes, because I know that in previous report that presented to us as is required by the ordinance, you have and the previous chief have also present cases that are in regard to criminals that are violence criminal in gun charges, drug charges, and stuff like that. That you brought up those people to court, and also immigration status was in question. So essentially, we're not stopping fighting crimes just because we are in a city that adopt an ordinance that is called the Trust Act.
Councilor Rodriguez, do you have any other questions?
Oh no, it's good interaction.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez. Councilors, are there any other questions for the chief? Chief, just a couple of quick questions. Thank you for providing this report. On the last item that what occurred, the infraction that occurred December 18th, 2020, do you have an idea of what type of illegal drugs were discovered?
No, I could get your clarification. I don't want to guess that it was probably heroin or fentanyl, but that's just that's usually the number one item that we deal with, but I could get you some clarification on that one.
Yes, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. I think it was a great discussion. Councilor Rodriguez, thank you for leading us in that discussion, because I think that this, it's important that we keep reviewing this and we keep having these conversations so people can understand the role that the city plays and how it differentiates from the role of the federal government. At the end of the day, our police department, what their focus is crime that occurs in the city and in the Commonwealth. And it's one of these things where if people are in fear of essentially their immigration status, then that will burden the relationship between the Lawrence Police Department and those individuals. Chief, just so you're aware, one of the things that I have seen, not during COVID so much, but pre-COVID, is that there's been several instances where ICE has, essentially almost like as if a lot of individuals thought that it was the Lawrence Police Department that was coming into their home when it was actually ICE. I'm not going to go ahead and say that ICE was pretending to be the Lawrence Police Department because I wasn't there. But you would have a resident call and be like, "Hey, this just occurred. They were extremely disrespectful to me, to my family. Nobody was actually here. Lawrence Police Department." I'm like, no, it just doesn't sound right. And then it ended up being ICE. So I think one of the things that it's probably not happening so much now. Who knows whether within this administration it will happen with the prevalence that it was occurring before. But it might be if you are hearing of these type of things occurring, I'm sure that the members of this committee would like to know about it. So if in the future you're hearing of these type of raids going in where it's not clear and they're not like clearly designating themselves as whatever agency is doing it, I think it'd be important for us to know because I would definitely want to, if whether it's a state or federal, if there are things going on in the city where potentially I think the Lawrence Police Department needs to know about some of these things occurring. But even if they happen, like, if a raid were to occur, I think us knowing at least afterwards, I think is vital. And for us to get a clear picture of what exactly went on, because I wouldn't want the community to sort of like connect LPD and and ICE together. And I think one of the things that has been built these last several years is the strong relationship within the community. So that way, if things are going on, people feel confident that their privacy will be respected, and they'll report, drug activity and violent crime. So thank you so much, Chief, for being here. Counselors, is there anything you'd like to do with this item?
Motion to table?
There's been a motion to table. It's been seconded by Councilor Levy. Calling for a vote, and Councilor Reyes, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
I vote yes.
Councilor Levy,
Yes.
and the chair votes in affirmative. Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you very much, councilors. I appreciate it.
Councilors, is there any other item that you would like to take out of tabled matters?
Do you have any other item? Mr. Chair?
Yes, Councilor. So there are a couple of items that I saw that I would like to take out of table for the purpose of withdrawing. Item 4017, animal incidents reporting and response protocol.
So move.
Second.
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilor Reyes. We're moving for a vote. Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. We are now on item 40-17, animal incidents.
Motion to withdraw?
Councilors, there's a motion to send to the full council to withdraw. Has it been second?
Second.
Been seconded by Councilor Levy. Calling for a vote. Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. That item has been withdrawn. Now moving to there's item 104-18, 2017 annual report from city physician request.
Motion to take it out of table?
There's been a motion to take that item out of table. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
There's been seconded by Councilor Reyes. Now moving for a vote. Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Vote yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. We are now on item 104-18. Council, this has been there for a few years. We've requested this annual report from the city physician. We've requested it several times. I do not think it's coming. So we can keep it here, or we could make a motion to withdraw it.
Let me make a motion to send.
I have a question.
Okay, Councilor Levy, you had a question?
I'm glad that Mr. President, I'm glad that you take this item out because I was thinking to ask regarding the report that we are not getting report from none of the committees that we are supposed to.
That we're not getting reports from, for this particular, or there are other items you're saying that we're not getting reports from as well?
Well, the only report that I've been seeing is the report from the police department. So we are not seeing report from all of the other departments.
So we have to request it. So we would have to request those reports, and I'll put a motion up for us to discuss at our maybe our next meeting to discuss LPD and Lawrence Fire report. But on this particular item, are there any thoughts on this, Councilor Rodriguez?
No, I'll say that to make a motion to send correspondence to our city physician to send us a report, including the COVID-19 impact.
Councilor Rodriguez, maybe would you amend that so that instead of the city physician, we're sending it to Director Armano?
Well, yes, we can do that, definitely. I mean,
Or to both?
I think both will be better.
Okay, so there's been a motion to send correspondence to Director Armano and the chair of the Board of Health, Dr. Gorn, for a, we're calling it city, within our laws, it states as an annual, the city physician will do an annual report, but what we're asking for is a little bit broader, and we're talking about the state, the state of the city when it comes to health, in particular around COVID. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So is there a second to this?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilor Levy. Moving for a vote, Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Chair votes in affirmative. Councilor, is there a motion to table this item?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, second by Councilor Levy. Moving for a vote, Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Let's do item 188-18, City Hall Security and Safety. Is there a motion to bring this out of table matters?
So moved.
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilor, so it's been a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Reyes. Councilor Levy, your vote?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Councilors, we are at City Hall Security and Safety. It was put in by Councilor De La Cruz in 2018, May 2018.
I think that, to you, Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
I think that these items should be studied. I don't want to withdraw it. I want to put a motion to withdraw it, since we all know that at some point the city council and once we have in-person meetings, it could feel the tension of any particular issues happening there. I personally have in the past feel scared, not scared necessarily. I don't know, something that I think that it should be reviewed, because I mean, we have open doors, which is great, but security is also a factor. I don't know who should we send it to, or if we can just all of us sit down and look at what all the protocol are available around in terms of public bodies. But I think it's important to take it serious and be able to do something about this, not just leaving it on the agenda and not do anything.
So Councilor Rodriguez, I would concur with that statement. I was going to ask for correspondence to be sent to Councilor La Cruz to see what her thoughts were. But I think that if you want, and I think that as a committee, we can take a little bit of ownership of this item, and we could ask for information. My initial thoughts are the mayor's office, sending correspondence to the mayor's office, and to see if there is some type of safety plan in place within City Hall. And I mean, I don't know what other questions we could also ask. So besides, seeing if there's a plan in place, are there any other questions that you think we would ask of, some type of individual that would have ownership of this, Councilor Levy?
Yes, I feel the same way sometimes. So right now it's true that we are not getting through to have those meetings at the city council chamber. But when I saw all of the problems that happened in Washington D.C. this year in February, I saw a lot regarding not just only about us, but also about whoever at the city hall. So I don't think so that there is a plan if something happened over there. I don't think so that we have any police there when we are having those meetings. And it brought me a lot of concern about it. So I think that I agree with you guys regarding sending correspondence to the mayor to see if there is a plan. Maybe we should, the police, the chief, that we should send a letter. So maybe he has some plan, or maybe I don't know what. But I think so that we should send correspondence and find out, what about if something happened at the labor of the city hall, how we're going to manage it, or how we're going to deal with that.
So is there a motion to send correspondence to the mayor's office and to, I guess, the mayor's office and the chief of police the correspondence would be asking the question to provide the Public Safety Committee with a plan on how the city deals with the safety of within City Hall, in particular, not just during working hours, but also, I mean, we're working right now, right? Not just during the daytime, but also during the evening when there's a lot of committees, city councils meeting, and those times it's open to the public.
Second.
So there's Councilor Levy. Are you making the motion?
I make
for
a
this?
motion, yes.
And it's been seconded by Councilor Reyes. We'll move to a vote. Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Councilor, is there a motion to table this item?
Motion to table.
There's been a motion to table. Is a second?
Second.
So motion's been, now we're moving to a vote. Has been made by Councilor Levy and tabled second by Councilor Rodriguez. Councilor Reyes, your vote?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Great, so that motion has been tabled. So councilors, I would like to take item 328-18 from tabled matters. It's Lawrence Emergency Management Response.
Okay.
Lawrence Emergency.
¿Cómo?
That was the one for the gas relief.
Yep. So that was sort of. So we'll talk about it in a second. There's been a Councilor Reyes. It's been seconded by Councilor Levy. Moving to a vote. Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. So this was back when this item, back when the gas prices first hit the first time. This motion was put in place for us, not just for us to know about the emergency response during that time, but also to leave a space within this committee's agenda for us to ask the question as to is, like, do we have a formalized emergency response now? I think during the time, it was difficult to kind of ask these questions because we were in action, we were on the go. I do think that there was some difficulty those first day or two, sort of like figuring things out. I think that City of Lawrence, we were to, able to figure it out, which I think is incredible. So there wasn't huge issues, dealing with the different bureaucratic systems. I think we were lucky with that. There are other cities and towns that when they're faced with a this type of emergency, they're not able to figure it out. So I'm would like to see if there is interest within the council to ask, the questions about, like, do we have, like, now, do we have an emergency management response memo? And also to see if there are questions that councilors might have around the gas crisis and how it's been handled.
Any other crisis also? So I think so that we should have, I'm sorry, Mr.
Councilor
President.
Levy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think so that we should have a manual, put them together, and I don't think so that we haven't done yet. So I know that if another crisis come by, there is nothing in writing that says how we're gonna deal. We got maybe the experience, but I think so that something has to be put in writing for everybody to have it, how to respond, how they're gonna do it. So we are so glad that we were able to respond and to act at that time, but we don't know. We don't know who's maybe the person maybe who got the most experience that was the mayor at that time, but we don't know how the new mayor that will come or the mayor that is acting right now is going to ask if we have the same experience that we had before. I don't know who can be the person who can write the manual, but we should have something in writing and say, well, this is we have to call this person, we have to do this, well, how are we going to act or interact with the different committee, with the fire department, with the police department, with the city clerk, the city hall. So I think so that we were able, and I'm glad that we manage it on the way that we manage it. But we don't know what is going to happen, see something happen again, how it's going to be. That's my concern.
Thank you, Councilor Levy. Any other councilor?
I think we agree
Reyes?
with Councilor Levy because we need to be prepared because we don't know when it's happening again.
Thank you, Councilor Reyes. So councilors, how would you like to proceed on this? I think I wouldn't necessarily say sending correspondence because I don't think that it's something that is currently being worked. My thoughts are that one or two councilors from this committee have a meeting with the mayor, first of all, to discuss this idea, see if perhaps there is some type of manual, some of the, and then can come back to the committee, kind of letting the full committee know where we're at, and potentially to see if there's further discussions that we could have with some of the key players, and see if who the mayor believes should be the department that puts something like this together. Because I would agree that I think that it is important for us to have something. I don't think it's necessarily a priority for us to have it tomorrow, but it's definitely something that we should start working on. Councilor Rodriguez, did you have something to say?
No, I'm saying I was going to say that I'm willing to work with the mayor. I actually have similar item on the agenda that has been there for quite some time, way before the gas explosions. And I guess that we never worked nothing, we never put anything together, but we got the experience of 2018. So now I think that uh, we shouldn't wait for another 5 years or 2 years. We should get something, on writing as of how we should communicate in this type of situations, how we should respond to the public on those type of scenarios, those emergencies, and how to actually be able to serve the community with a proper plan that work for the city, within the city, and not just go with the general plan that the state have in case, which basically that was how we respond in the city of Lawrence. But definitely, we can definitely push this item forward and be able to be part of the solution.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe
great.
the mayor, I'm sorry, maybe the
Go ahead,
mayor
Councilor Levy.
gets an ad hoc committee the same way, that can come together and start putting together the information that really that and make something that we should have it on hand on how people can act or react in case that we had another emergency. And I will go forward a little bit more. So I will go forward regarding that maybe not just only for us, but maybe something for the community or for the school, the children that get like the same way like the firefighter had like the little children book that say in case of a fire you have to do this, like the stop, drop, and roll and show, something simple, but can be benefit the city and the community, and also even going to benefit us. So
Okay, so Council, so it sounds like if anybody else is interested, I will happily join Councilor Rodriguez in that initial meeting, but if anybody, if there are any other members are interested in being a part of it, I will gladly step out.
I will.
Okay, so Councilor Rodriguez, Councilor Levy, you guys are both tasked with meeting with our mayor, and hopefully by the next meeting, having something to report to the committee about next steps. Does that sound right to both of you?
More
Yeah.
homework. Yeah.
So yeah, more than work. And I will say, if I can, I know that I because both of you there, I won't be able to be in that meeting, but if I can support in any way, please let me know. Councilors, is there a motion to table this item?
Motion to table.
Second.
So there was a motion to table by Councilor Rodriguez, been seconded by Councilor Reyes. Moving for a vote, Councilor Levy,
Yeah. Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilors, is there any other item? I'm sorry. Motion to withdraw. Is there? Can I get a motion to take item 387-18, Buckley Garage homeless use?
So move.
Second.
There's been a motion, seconded by Councilor Levy. Moving for a vote, Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
We are item 387-18, Buckley Garage homeless use. I think that there isn't necessarily a point of discussion right now. So is there a motion to withdraw this item?
So move.
Second.
Motion to withdraw by Councilor Rodriguez, second by Councilor Levy. Moving for a vote, Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Motion is sent to full council to withdraw. Councilors, are there any other items that you would like to take up? I see item 415-16, review of the police department's use of the license plate reader. Is it a motion to take off a table?
So move.
Second.
There's been a motion to take off a table by Councilor Rodriguez, second by Councilor Reyes. Moving for a vote, Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
I vote yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. Counselor, so the item in full is item 415-16, review of the police department's use of the license plate reader put forward by Council President LaPlante in 2016. We can send correspondence to Councilor LaPlante. It could be that
Oh.
this item is not, I don't know. We can send it to withdraw, and he can make the choice to send it back. So it's up to how the council wants to proceed. Yes, Councilor Rodriguez.
That item it's been kept at this level because every so often we get a report as of how that program, which started as a pilot program, how that program is working. I remember receiving a report, but not for quite some time. We haven't received that yet. We haven't received it. But I mean, we can definitely send correspondence to the police department as of how that program is doing, how we've been utilizing those units. And also I don't remember at what level, if it was at this level, or if it was at the full council level, that the police department was going to use the readers on other perhaps location or units. So I just don't remember the details. But we can definitely send correspondence to the police department and ask for an update on this.
Councilor Rodriguez, do you know what these readers were used for?
Yes.
For what?
Before, they used to be on different units, different vehicles, to go around and to read license plates and catch people that are having issues, and most likely stolen vehicles. If a vehicle has been reported stolen, and those readers catch those stolen vehicles and get, that person get pulled over and then proceed from there. So, but mostly for to prevent crimes.
Okay. Is there a motion to send correspondence to the police department for a review on the current license plate reader program and for us to know the status of the program? So, motion to send correspondence to the Lawrence Police Department for a review of the license plate reader program and a review of its current status.
Yes.
So there's been a motion by Councilor Rodriguez. It's been seconded by Councilor Levy. Moving to a vote. Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Councilor, is there a motion to table this item?
Motion to table.
There's been a motion to table the item by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Reyes. Moving for a vote. Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Councilors, is there any other item that you would like to take up from tabled matters?
Motion to adjourn.
There's been a motion to adjourn, second by Councilor Levy. Calling for a vote. Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. Thank you all. I hope you guys have a very great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.